We've got to rescue a Lincoln. It's pretty well. The building is just sitting on it. And so we got to get the building up and get the Lincoln out. And it's been here a while. Lots of nesting material. Oh, engine turned. 135, 50, 112, 118, 20, 148, 118, 152. So all of them look good except number 5. Number 5 has got some issues. But we could have like a rocker arm off or something. Maybe a bent push rod with a rocker arm that's off. I'm gonna pull the driver's side valve cover off real quick. Five minutes later, less than that, I got the valve cover loose. I think it's easy to work on, at least getting the valve cover off. Let's get up under here maybe. Great if we could keep our gasket. Ooh, we did. Wow, what a mess. This thing is sludgy, but that is what I called. That is intake number one intake rock arm. Well, we're going to pop this rocker arm off. And I think what we'll do, and we're not really going to hurt the oil at this point. I've got a rubber mallet here. I mean, it's moving. Maybe it's not stuck anymore. I'm gonna go see if I can straighten this thing up. We will get a push rod. We're gonna just straighten this one out for now. It's mostly straight. It's not gonna be perfect, and I would never run this any period of time. But if it's just gonna bend it again, then wouldn't we want to know that before we put a new one on? I would. I think what we'll do, we'll do that same thing. We're gonna spray some, or we're gonna pour some Marvel Mister Oil down the cylinder. Man, I cut my finger working on the Mercedes a couple days ago, and when I was holding this push rod as I was beating on it with a rubber rubber mallet up against a block of wood, and wouldn't you know it, I hit that thing hard right where I cut it, and man, it all right, let's bump it over and just see what happens. I'm gonna watch it. that's looking pretty good. Like I said, I'm going to take, to be honest, that cylinder that had 50, that was on the other side. We should probably pull the other valve cover off and check it. It is rotating it though. I wouldn't have thought it would with it not completely straight. Like I said, I would not run this, but just to see how the thing runs and get us a new one. What I'm curious now, what our compression will be. That cylinder that has 50, you know, it looked good from a plug perspective, but what happened with this one, which I think happened, you know, at some other point in time. Well, I know it did because of that spark plug. But what happened there could have just happened to our number, whatever that was, that had 50. Number 2, I think. So let's see. Now this cylinder is probably going to be low because it probably hasn't actually ran in a lot longer than the other ones. Or, you know, correctly. Zero. Probably our intake now is sticking. Just loosen that off a little bit and just see if it'll seal with it loose. We popped our push rod off. Yeah, see, this intake valve is... Come on. Look at that. 135. Man, that looks much better. 135. I don't know what these things torque to. We're gonna just get a feel on this one. I mean, it's tight. Why is it? That's not making much sense. Why? Let's check it again. When I tighten it all the way down, I think we're holding the valve open. We are. Why is that? I think what I'm going to do is just set the valve cover back on it, not tighten it down or anything. We're going to let this thing sit for a while and see if maybe that is the case. Maybe that lifter has just pumped way up, and see if it'll bleed down maybe, and I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. Cleaned up the valve cover a little bit before I set it on there. I thought this was funny. This thing definitely has not been repainted, but you know, it's still got the factory marks on it. But it's also still got the factory runs in it. Look at that sloppy paint job. Doesn't show up as much on camera as it does in person, but it's got some major runs in it. I thought that was funny. Man, that looks good on there. This side? That side. Alright, this side looks like it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get in there. Well, drizzling rain, worse than it was. But I couldn't help myself. Getting wet. And my flashlight is, well, let's see how long it'll go. It turned off and battery's dead on it. I don't see anything obvious on this side other than the amount of sludge. So this side's fine. We'll just slap this one back together, and maybe that cylinder will come back up. I was just turning it over. Number 5 over there is still 0 compression. We'll do some reading on if there's any. I don't think there's any adjustment on the valves on these. I think you just run them up, and you know the adjustments in the lifters and the hydraulic lifters. Not 100% positive on that, but I'm pretty sure on it. So I'm going to do a little reading on it. I'm also going to start looking up some parts, valve cover gasket, and a push rod, and see about that kind of stuff. And that's probably about it. So I'm going to close this off and go inside. Cover this thing back up, go inside, and I'll continue on this another day. Next day, what I did with number 2 is went ahead and I squirted some more of our concoction in there. And then I put the plug in it, and then I spun it over. And that way it would force that stuff out the exhaust and help lubricate the exhaust valve. That was my goal. We already, poured some down the intake and did our thing. So we know intake valves are somewhat lubricated, and now we've lubricated the exhaust. I checked it again. We got 60, so we came up 10. I mean, not much of an improvement, but I kind of feel like that cylinder is going to come around once we get this thing running. Now, number 5, on the other hand, is still showing 0. I'm pretty sure what's happened is that lifter is pumped up too much and it's not wanting to go back down. I'm not really sure what to do about that. I was hoping sitting overnight, it would kind of go down, but it's not. I don't know if once we got it running and it got some RPM, if that would maybe push it down, but it's not wanting to go down right now. Well, plugs are gapped at 45 and installed, except for number 5, which is got the compression tester in it. We've got the valve covers just sitting back on it. I poured the rest of my bottle of Marvel Mystery Oil. It wasn't a whole lot, but I poured it down in there, or down in the engine, in the crankcase. Get that circulating around. If we do have a lifter issue, maybe it'll help free it up, whatever's going on. Then like I said, I'm not a Ford guy, not a 460 guy, so I don't know the firing order offhand, but if we look down in here somewhere, I don't know if you focus, come on, there we go, 154263778. So I'm going to go through, pull the plug wires off, the ones that I know for sure. Like we got number 2 there, number 6 here, and we can figure it out from there where each one goes. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I'm not gonna make them pretty or anything, just gonna lay them on here because we're gonna have to pull them back off when we put the valve cover gaskets on. Oh, we're getting close. Plugs, wires are on it. Firing order should be correct. I'm going to take a minute to just look at vacuum lines and plug off any that are open. And then I'm going to take and undo the fuel line and take a long piece of fuel hose and drop it into a bucket. If the fuel pump starts pumping, we don't want that in the carburetor. We have to rebuild the carburetor anyway, but we don't want it to try to run on nasty varnished gas. And then I'm gonna have to get me a gas can, and we're gonna try to fill up the float bowls through the vents, and then give it a little squirt of gas and see if it'll run. Kind of think it will. We got compression, we got ignition, so we should have boom. Not a boom. Booms in the cylinders. Anyway, let's get busy. Get this thing running. Alright, we're gonna call this first startup in 15 years. I've plugged up all the vacuum lines that I could find, and I think we're in pretty good shape. That's a heat riser, I think, not a vacuum. Anyway, keys on. Let's see what happens. I've squirted some gas down the carburetor and tried to put some in the float bowl, but I don't know. Let's see. Alright. It fired off. This is going to need a lot of gas. And this is not window cleaner. Look at that. Let me get where I can get to see the... Woo! Holy cow. We are smoking. We got lots. Hey, we got 20 pounds of compression on that one cylinder. Yeah, with all that Marvel mist oil and transmission fluid we put in the cylinders. And we got exhaust leaks galore. Need some manifold gaskets. I can see the gap. Heard something right at the end I didn't like. We know we're getting oil pressure, or we know we have at least some oil pressure because it was pumping up the lifters. I thought I heard something that sounded kind of like a knock, but I guess let's see if it continues. Trying to think. Yeah, we know we had oil pressure because it was. We don't know how much oil pressure we have. We don't have a gauge on it. It's got a dummy light. It does have a gauge, I think, but I don't know that I can keep it running and look at it. It's got a light, so let me see if I can get it running long enough to do the light. Quite a bit of marble Mr. Oil. Who knows if the carburetor's even. Quite a bit. Do a little spritz. I guess if I let me hook the starter wire back up, and I'll start it up from the inside and see if I can watch the light go out. It's probably the better option. Ignition switch is not working from the inside. Alright. Or the start. We have neutral safety switch issue or something. It is in neutral, or part. I think it's trying to run off the carburetor. You can do it. Alright, it's got good oil pressure. Even though it had died, the light was out and then it came back on. I don't hear that noise again. I don't know what it was. Probably just be me being paranoid. Carburetor's probably dunked up. All right, let's put a plug in this one and just see if we can get it to fire a little bit. It's showing 30. Maybe it will. Try one of these. keep in mind we can't run this thing too long. We've got no cooling system. But running it just a short period of time is not going to hurt it. Man, it desperately needs exhaust manifold gaskets. Holy cow. Let's see. If we can get cylinder number 5 to fire. And once it starts firing, we may get some compression back. I don't know. I feel like that valve is staying open. What we'll probably see is it puffing back through the carburetor when it fires. It may even flame out the carburetor. Need to be careful with our gas once we got this one firing, or trying to fire. Let's see, we pumping anything? Nope. So we either have a clogged fuel line, nothing in the tank, which would be ideal, or bad fuel pump. I'm going to go ahead and top off the bowl. Alright, let's see what happens. It sounds smoother. Carburetor jump. I think we're firing on that cylinder now. Sounds really smooth. Why it started running bad then? Oh, carburetor probably ran out of fuel. It was probably supplementing, probably not doing enough to run it, but it was probably supplementing. Alright, I think I'm going to let it cool down for a few minutes. We may try this one more time. It sounds pretty good. I think the blow-by is actually getting a little bit less. Had quite a bit of blow-by when we first started, but I think it's sounding better. Still got nothing from the fuel pump, but that's fine. Well, looks like quite a bit of insulation blew out our exhaust. Something had a nest up in there. And I think unfortunately I had the camera on the back here in time-lapse mode, so no idea if it captured this blowing out. What a mess. Alright, let's try it again. We've got it, I put 2 squirt bowls full of gas in the carburetor. but I'm happy with that. Well, it's winking at me. It looks like this one was starting to come down. I guess the vacuum headlights work, and I guess we plugged up the vacuum, or sealed up the vacuum system enough that it's actually working. So we'll do a compression test on 5 and 2 and see if those numbers will come up. We're not worrying about the rest of them. We're gonna make the assumption that they will come up or did come up. 5 and 2 were just the worst, so we're gonna check them. Let me get busy. I'm gonna hop probably back onto the brakes. Y'all are seeing that in a separate video. I think we're gonna call this it for now, but I do want to update you on those 2 cylinders. So I'll do that at the end of this, and then we're gonna cut this one off. I'm pretty happy right now. Number 5, 120, and it's turning over a lot slower now because we got all the plugs in it. So if it was turning over a little faster like the other ones were, you know, when we had all the plugs out, it may would be even a little better than that. But 120, I'll take that any day. That's a good number. So unfortunately, this cylinder still is at 40. Our other one over there came up to 120. So this one, you know, there's no bent push rod or anything on this one. We're just gonna let it run, and after it runs a little bit, we'll see if this comes up. That's about all we can do with it. I may pull the valve cover back off again and look at it, but for now, you know, we did investigate it. There was no push rod off or anything. Everything was moving like it was supposed to, so it's probably a valve not sealing well, and I think maybe after it runs a little bit, that may come up. The engine's cold right now. We've got all the plugs in it, so the number's gonna be lower than it was before. I think it was 50 before, so I'd say it's about the same as it was before. You know, engine's just not turning over as fast with the plugs in it. And my battery was down a little bit, so I got the charger on it now. But yeah, it's as good as we're getting. We're just gonna let it be as it is for now, and we're gonna get the cooling system together on this thing. That way we can let it run, and maybe after 20 minutes of running or so, we'll check it again, and maybe the numbers have come up.